for each and every day that we have to live this life. And we thank you for those people that are in our lives and the ones that are here to help us in our daily lives and protecting us and making the decisions and encouraging each one to have a better community here in Attica. And again, I thank you for everyone that's here and involved and is interested in their hometown. And these things I pray.
Amen. And before we start the meeting, I'd like to let everybody know we're going to try to push this as quick as we can because at 7 o'clock, we're going to have a 911 ceremony. Chief Little will be in charge of that, and we'd like to all attend it if we can. So I thought it would be good.
I have 6 o'clock, Mayor.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order.
Mr. Grant?
Present.
Mrs. Carnahan? Present. Mrs. Moss?
Present.
Mrs. Hargan?
Present.
Mr. Voorhees?
Present.
Mayor Roderick?
Present.
Attorney Barse?
Present.
Present.
Okay, Mayor.
Okay, has everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes?
I have one correction.
Okay,
Addition. On page 3, where it's under miscellaneous, the donating of the park benches, there were 2 instead of 1.
yes. That wasn't asked at the beginning,
Okay,
but they decided afterwards, I guess.
which was very nice if you have.
It was very nice.
Other than that, I think as written, they're fine.
So I make a motion to approve the minutes with the one change to the minutes for 8/14/2023, and then also the minutes for our special meeting on 8/24/2023 as written.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Where's that? There's that one. Okay, citizens petitions. Mr. Watkins, I think you wanted to approach us.
Yes,
Okay, if you would stand and say your name.
I'm Dave Watkins, owner of Big Dave's Barbecue in Williamsport, but I'm here on behalf of the Williamsport Attica Senior Center today. Their building is in need of a lot of repairs. With COVID, they weren't allowed to rent the building, use the building, but still they had to pay their water bill, light bill, all that, so they were, no money was coming in. Last month, I went and talked to the board in Williamsport and before their meeting, and they agreed to pay $3,000 to get them a new furnace. And so we're still trying to lower their operating costs, which the furnace will be a lot of help, but their lighting is all fluorescent lights, 8-foot fluorescent tube lights, and there's like 20 some of them in there. So we came to see if maybe since it's code deal between Williamsport and Attica, if you might be willing to match that $3,000 so they could get LED lighting in there to help lower their operating costs. I'm also going to do a chicken noodle dinner benefit for them in October to help raise money. And we've got a few farmers who are going to pitch in and donate as well. But we just thought they said they've never came and asked you for money before. They've been there a long time. So they asked me if I would come and do it. So here I am.
So, open for discussion.
Do we have any idea how much we're talking to upgrade the existing fixtures to LEDs? Is there an estimate or anything?
If they go with just replacing the bulbs range anywhere from $30 to $75, depending on how good a bulb they get. Because you don't actually have to replace the fixtures. You can buy bulbs that fit in those fixtures.
Yeah.
They just need to change those out and then change all the diffusers out as well, so that the light would come through better as well, because they're old and dark.
Would there be a way that you could provide us with an estimate, a written estimate?
Personally, I can't, because all I do is I go in to the stores and I buy knickknacks for them and I take them in and donate them for their bingo and other things that they do inside there. I don't know I don't know that much about what they do. I just was trying to help them
Sure.
get it fixed.
Sure.
So,
And I think we'd like to help them. But we need to know
Right, we
numbers.
need to know
Make that
numbers.
happen.
We would need to have an estimate from somebody and some sort of numbers to.
Okay.
You could ask an electrician maybe just to let you know what it would cost to replace that, all those bulbs.
So
So,
they're
and
all-
then have an estimate to present to us, and that way we could go from
Okay.
there.
They're all fluorescent, so all you need is the starters and the bulbs.
Well,
That's
I-
from what research I've done, you don't have to do anything. You can just put the LED bulbs in those. Some of them, depending on the ballast, you may have to take the ballast out and wire it direct to get the LED bulbs
Got
to
it.
work in those.
That's what I had to do.
They have the little ballast that's screwing the ends, basically is all it is. So that's,
Well, I think we will,
You can-
will help, but I think we need to just have something in front of us, because we gotta have it for our records too, what it goes for.
Right.
Where could we pull that money from?
You know how much it is for.
Right.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what funds.
Check
it
with
was.
Judge Reese in Warren County.
Okay, that's fine.
He had the
No, I
whole
would say.
courtroom redone. I think the whole courthouse was redone LED wise.
Okay.
I don't know who they used, but he would know.
Okay.
If you have a director or somebody who could,
I went to their board meeting last Wednesday for the first time.
okay.
And some of these people are so old, it's hard.
Oh,
for them.
bless their hearts.
But you have to say things 4 or 5 times.
Sure, yeah,
And that's why
sure.
we'd like to help.
Sure, we'd love to help them, but we just have to have something for our
I
records.
will do what I can.
Okay.
What's your email address? For your cell phone, what do you prefer?
DWR 5258 yahoo.com.
Check with the judge.
Okay,
And shoot it to you.
okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for
Thank you.
coming to
Thank you.
represent
Thank
me.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other citizens petitions? Okay, next we have,
We have,
Not a petition per se, but to go on what he's doing. Beth Parrish is the director over there.
Beth Parrish.
Beth Parrish
Parrish.
is the director.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Eric Smith from HWC. He's going to give us a couple updates on our water project and our marketplace parking lot.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
I've got two small PowerPoints, just one's, they're both kind of updates on the downtown streetscape. I am going to ask for approval of a change in how we're going to handle part of that, but go through the update first and then really just give you a general update on the water project along with one issue that we're going to have to revisit after we get some more investigation done. So on the streetscape, this is, as you know, the city had done a revitalization plan and looked at streetscape in for several blocks of Perry Street. This is phase one, that is really the 200 block of Perry and also encompasses Mill and Jackson Street and the proposed market. This was a rendering that I know you all have seen. The market area is there at the intersection of Mill and Perry. The area that says future development project, that area it's in green, which is the south half that is frontage of Perry Street. That's actually where the demolition project is ongoing. That's intended to be green space, at least for 5 years. That's part of the grant process. And then there is a parking lot that is essentially going behind where those buildings are being demolished. And actually it encompasses part of that area from there to the alley, the north-south alley. And that parking lot is for the market and also is part of the drive-through for the coffee shop there and has access both on Mill and Jackson Street. There's streetscape amenities, pavers, new sidewalks, new pavement along Perry, Jackson, and Mill. The project was split up into a couple different sections, partly because of funding and partly because of timing. The parking lot and the drive access was intended to be a phase one project because it is totally self-funded by the city. The streetscape, we are applying to NDOT to get community crossing matching grant funds for portions of that. Mill Street and Jackson are not eligible, but Perry is. So because of the community crossings grant fund application. We won't get award on that until November, we're hearing. That part of the project was always intended to kind of be an early 2024 bid, and we were looking at bidding the parking lot this fall. Well, because of several different things, we think it may be beneficial to bid this all together early in the year, and I'll kind of explain why, because there's a lot of moving parts. So I've listed some kind of interrelated projects that are currently ongoing all in that same area. You got the Perry Street demolition. That's ongoing. Right now, the buildings have been demolished. The backfilling and filling of the voids in the basement areas with structural fill is being completed. Hopefully that part will be done over the course of the next month, but that is something that is still in progress. And with the action you took tonight earlier, then the contractor can also then move to the hotel and work on that part of the project. The market development, which Rod Bannon is driving, the architects are finalizing plans. They've been doing a lot of coordination with our team for grades and because there's a lot of transitions from the market site to the various parts of the streetscape. So they're finalizing plans for a fall bid. The parking lot itself, as I said, we were kind of looking at that being an initial phase. The design and bid documents are complete. We are incorporating some utility relocations, which I'll show you where a lot of that is here in a second. And like I said, we were planning to bid that in October to kind of get an initial phase of the project moving. The streetscape part is what we're calling phase 2. As I mentioned, you've got the part that's community crossings funded, which are portions of Perry Street. Now, community crossings through NDOT, they won't fund like the lighting and the pavers, but they will fund the structural elements, the sidewalk and the paving. And then also the non-community crossing matching grant funded portions along Mill and Jackson Street. The design of all that's about 90% complete. Some of the outstanding items are the NDOT permit. We're still coordinating electrical items for planters and lighting, and then some of the paver layouts and style working through Rod so that all that matches with the market. As I mentioned, community crossings matching grant funding, we're being told by NDOT probably November. Nothing firm on that. That project was always planned to bid January, February of 2024. Then you've got the market site grading and soil stabilization. There's some areas where they're going to be building on the market site where we had some soil bores done. And there's some areas where there's some unsuitable soil that we need to put in some structural fill so it can be compacted so that they can build on. Some of that unsuitable was even outside of where there were previous buildings there. So that there was some structural fill put down when they did some of those demolition activities, but there's some areas outside of that even need to be remediated. That contractor is also going to do some rough grading of the market, so that part is done. And that bid package will go out in October and get that work done before the end of the year, before winter hits. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot of utility and other current coordination issues that's really affecting the streetscape. The market side, as I mentioned, the soil replacement and rough grading, that work will be ongoing over the next couple months. Duke Electric has some electric lines that need to be relocated really in both alleys, the east-west alley and the north-south alley. AT&T has a fiber line that's in a duct bank, and that is in conflict in a couple places with some of the streetscape amenities and curbs. The existing building removal, as I mentioned, is still ongoing. Then in the north-south alley, again, Duke and AT&T and Comcast have overhead lines that are going to be placed underground, which is a good thing, but that doesn't happen overnight. They've got to get their contractors in and get that work coordinated. There's a gas line in the alley that needs to be abandoned by Vectron or Centerpoint now. There's a AT&T fiber vault where you can see there's a bump out in our curb line in that alley. That vault is actually right in that bump out, so it needs to be relocated. And that coordination has been made with AT&T. They are willing to do it. It's just, it takes some time. Then you have the market again, and then there are, the city's gonna be putting in service, sanitary and water service from Mill Street into the market area to provide water and sanitary services. So if we were to bid the parking lot now, there's a lot of things that the awarded contractor would have to coordinate. And usually when contractors are told to coordinate and deal with other entities, usually that drives the price up. So what our thought was, let's let all of this work get completed this year, and let's look at bidding the parking lot along with the streetscape work all together with 3 separate contracts in early 2024. Keep them as 3 different bid packages because we have to keep the community crossing funded portion separate because it's through NDOT. And then we'll bid the non-CCMG funded work on Perry, Mill, and Jackson as one contract, and then the parking lot. There's some benefits to doing that. It allows for all the ongoing coordination to be resolved and the underground work completed. Less coordination for any of the contractors that would get this work. It usually equals less cost. All work being bid together and the potential for one contractor to get all the work, which could save time and coordination. Because if we were to bid part of it now and part of it after the first year, you might get 2 or even 3 contractors. We bid this all together. It's likely the contractor that has the lowest unit prices is going to get all 3. So that could save money. And then ultimately the completion date for everything would not be affected because we were going to be bidding phase 2 in early 2024 anyway. So we'd still be looking at an August or September completion date for everything. So we think this has some advantages, and talking with the mayor, I said, let's just kind of show all this. And if the council's in agreement, we will plan for bidding all of this together in January or February as soon as we're allowed, once we get the funding notification. So any questions on that?
I think it makes sense. Do we realistically feel like that all of these relocations will take place then by the end of this year, by the first of next year?
Hopefully. Rod Bannon has been coordinating with a lot of these utilities to kind of get their buy-in to do it. I know Sharon has even helped with some of that. He has now we have Lisa Robbins in our office does all of our utility coordination for all of our NDOT projects. So she is now involved because she has some contacts with each of these utilities that actually make sure these things happen. So she's now involved to kind of help push along now that they've agreed to do it. So I think it should, Larry.
Okay.
Nothing's for sure, but I think it should happen.
So I guess question with relation to the current project that we have going on with Greg and his team for the demo.
Mhm.
I know they're doing backfill and things like that. Is there anything that we wouldn't have to, where we're gonna have double the expense or something with he's bringing in fill dirt and doing certain things that would help? Or, because I know he was talking to me about grading and it's majorly different from where that's at compared to what we're doing. And I don't know if we're gonna do a retaining wall or
What we've directed him to do is fill the voids and level the grade and then go to work on the hotel. Then we're going to bring a survey crew out and shoot all the elevations as it is now that the buildings are gone. And then we're going to match that up with the grades of the parking lot and that area and see how much fill needs to be brought in. Those guys don't do a lot of grading type work. They're demolishing, they're demo contractors. But if we can maximize what we can use funding wise out of the demolition grant, we should try to do that. So we're going to let them get the hotel done. They do have to have an asbestos monitoring contractor there, and that's going to be some additional cost. While they're doing that, we're going to survey that, and if he can bring in some dirt that will help save cost for the parking lot contractor, we're going to do that.
Okay. Because I think he mentioned, obviously the highest spot right now is the Napa cement floor.
Yeah, and we're actually cutting there with the parking lot grades from what it is now. So we don't want to bring in too much, obviously.
Well,
because
that's my thing. And then you got the road right
Yeah.
there. If you get too close to that sidewalk, then now you start potential collapse problem with a state road or, I don't know how far they're.
That's why we'd like him to smooth it out, because you really couldn't know what some of these grades were until the buildings were gone.
Got it.
So once he levels it off, fills the voids, we're gonna come in and probably shoot it with a drone and do a profile of the grade, and then see what we want him to do, and then we can determine what the parking lot contractor would need to do and adjust our plans that we already have completed accordingly.
Got it. I just wanted to check on that, see if there was anything we weren't duplicating, because I know the hotel expense is way beyond his
Yeah.
initial bid, and then whatever else we can tap out of the grant and our match, and,
The good thing is his initial bid for everything was well under the grant, so we've got some money to play with.
but then the hotel.
That was the question I had too. How does that work? Because we've had other additions and everything.
They,
They bid 277,000, and we know it's gonna cost more than that.
Yeah.
And we were awarded 500,000, but my understanding was we had to go with the bid, and then we could take it times like 18%. And it was about $53,000 extra that we had.
well, you have more than that when you can claim unforeseen conditions.
Okay, great.
That 20% is only if you were adding work to a contract that was not part of the original scope.
Okay.
If it's unforeseen conditions, which most of this we can
Right.
claim, then we can use all of that money.
That's awesome.
And that's our
That's what I was
intent.
really worried about.
Yeah.
The hotel, I think they said the hotel's like 123 plus because of all the asbestos, is that? a
Yeah,
accurate
but
number?
having somebody on site to monitor it hopefully will bring that cost down.
Okay.
Because now they're not going to classify the whole building. Somebody on site that's certified will just tell them what needs to be handled in a certain way and what doesn't. So
Got it. All right, thank you. Didn't mean to get us sidetracked. I just-
No, it's good questions.
The community crossing grant that we were applying for this round, are we applying for it still for another project then, like another part of the city, like, or does that go for next? Do you see my question?
that would be the next application.
Okay,
The only thing you
we're not
have,
missing out on
No.
any, okay.
the only
I just
thing
wanted
you
to make
have
sure.
in right now is for this.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't like miss out on a round of that.
No, because we deferred the one, I think, right?
Right, okay.
Went for the next one.
Yeah, and you're just finishing construction on one, so.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, 'cause I was like, I don't wanna leave money out there that we.
So you could technically apply again in January, even if you're awarded in November. So that's something we probably need to talk about.
Okay.
I think a lot of that will depend on funding, how much you could put in. But there'll be another round in July. So if
Okay.
you don't hit it in January, we can always wait till July.
So is everybody okay with that? Okay.
Okay, we'll proceed with bidding it in that manner and,
Yep.
and, hopefully we'll get an award from NDOT in November and I'll put together a schedule for bidding, and send it all to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Nice
Larry.
presentation.
Now for the next bad.
Now for the water.
Yeah.
A lot of this is just an update, but some of it is something we're gonna have to deal with, based on the things we found. I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail, but because a lot of you have seen this already, but we're in the middle of a water project that was based on a study that was done 2019 or so around COVID, and then the project was bid about 8 months ago, and so we're well into construction. The city's got two wells. One was developed in 1947, the other 1963. They've been maintained very well, continue to produce a lot of water, and no issues there. You have a water treatment facility. You have the large structure, which is an air stripping unit that was constructed in 2009 to treat the trichloroethylene issues in the aquifer. Then you also have chlorine disinfection. The last update to that was in the 1997 project. Then out on the east side of town, you've got two water storage tanks. You've got an in-ground reservoir that was constructed over 100 years ago. You have a booster station that pumps out of that in-ground reservoir and fills the elevated tank that was built back in the late 1990s in that 97 project. And it was repainted in 2015. And then obviously you got a large distribution system. Last big project was in 97, added 9,000 feet of newer replacement mains, and then another project in 2001. So just generally, the well pumps pump through that treatment plant, and they pump up to this in-ground reservoir. And the high service pumps, they will call for the wells to pump, and the high service pumps will kick on. They're called by the level in that reservoir. So if it drops to a certain point, it tells the high service pumps to kick on, which then in turn tell the wells to kick on. So they pump to the reservoir. The elevated tank also has a level sensor in it, and then there are 2 booster pumps that pump out of the reservoir and fill the elevated tank. The city has 2 zones. It has a high zone and a low zone, and there are 6 of these pressure sustaining vaults that have valves in them. And these valves do 2 things. They isolate the 2 zones because you don't want elevated tank pressure down in the very low areas because you'll have pressure that will be too high for those pipes to take. But those valves also open if there's a demand. Say you have a fire hydrant that, say you have a fire in the low zone, it allows that valve to open and you can supply additional water to support the low zone in the event of a high demand. That was all set up back in that 1997 project. So talk about progress of the project. Division A, which was everything at the wells, the reservoir, and the treatment systems. They're working on the demolition of each of the 2 well buildings. There was some demolition, then some improvements. Well building number 2 is being completely rebuilt. So that is in progress. The reservoir roof, which we'll get to in a second, we were going to put a new aluminum dome on that reservoir. That's not started. I'll explain why here in a second. Chemical feed equipment, they've got that delivered. They've not started installation of that. And then the rest of it, the generator and for the well field, and then the booster pumps are being replaced. And then SCADA, which is how the whole system is controlled. There's some upgrades to that being done. So a lot of that's in progress, but not a lot of completion yet on that, so to speak. Still have a lot of supply chain issues in the industry. So there's a lot of things that are still slow to get in. It's affecting the schedule of a lot of projects. Division B was essentially the water main portion of the project, the distribution system. Most of the new water main has been put in. We were putting in a lot of valves across the system to better isolate areas in case when you have leaks, so you can shut down smaller areas of the system. You can see a lot of those have been installed. We've actually installed a few more than what was originally bid based on what we found. One thing that has slowed down a little bit is the number of hydrants. We've only got 3 in to date because we're trying to work to see how we can isolate some of those areas better because a lot of the valves that are in the system don't work. So even though we're adding a lot of valves to the system that will work, as Eric will test, a lot of them that we found, we still can't isolate some of these areas. So we're trying to figure out how to cut some of these hydrants in either live or to try to shut down smaller areas of system. So that's something that our inspector is working with the contractor on. Meters, we had a lot of meters that were inside buildings downtown. Those have all been switched out and put out in the right of way. And then there's a backflow preventer at C&D that they're going to be putting in, I think, early. When?
I think already.
Oh, was it just this past week?
Yeah.
Okay. I put this together a week ago. Okay. The issue that I wanted to bring up, reevaluating the condition of the in-ground reservoir. It has a membrane roof. It's a membrane on top, but as you can see, it has a brick and steel structure. Based on, there's a company that city has a service contract with to maintain both tanks. Suez, I believe, is the name of their company. They went in and did some inspection live, not taking the tank out of service, and sent in a rover. It's a piece of equipment that can go in and take pictures. And essentially, the roof was found to be in bad condition, but the structure did not appear to be bad. There was a liner on it, but there was nothing that would tell us definitively that, hey, the tank's in poor condition. You got to just scrap it and replace it. So we looked at replacing the roof, and part of the project to do that was to demolish and remove the existing roof and then replace it with an aluminum dome cover. So we had about $429,000 in the project to cover that. So what has been discovered, the contractor had to provide some exact dimensions to the company that is providing the roof. Because it needs to fit, since it's not a completely circular structure, it had to provide good dimensions so that what they built would fit there. The exterior wall is actually brick, not concrete, and the bearing surface where the aluminum dome would bear is not level. It actually varies by 2 feet. Because of the shape of that roof that's there. So the contractor would have to build up a wall around the top of this to provide a level surface for the roof. And then they also found when they dug down a little deep, because most of the ground, if you've been up that site, is mounted up around the reservoir. You can see the roof, but you can't really see the walls. That there was water seeping through the mortar joints. So that there is some leakage that's getting through the liner. So we really need to see how bad this is. Can we rehab this tank, or does it make more sense to look at replacing it? So there's 2 options. As I said, one is to repair the tank, and in order to do that, we have to take it out of service. There are 2 of those valves that I mentioned that keep the zones isolated. 2 of those need to be replaced. So before we can take it out of service, we're going to have the contractor replace those, because in order to take this out of service, we need those in place to protect the low zone from high pressure. So once that's done, we'll take the tank out of service. We'll actually inspect it. Depending on what we find, there is methods to line that with a high strength concrete called Zypex. We've actually talked to that contractor or the company that provides that. They're going to come out and look at the tank when we have it drained and give us some guidance on what they think. So that's one option that we can look at. The second option is to build a new 500,000 gallon, same size, glass lined bolted steel tank with a dome roof. Until we know the cost of what it's going to take to rehab the existing tank, and also taking the life of the tank, future life of the tank into service, we're not ready to give you a recommendation yet. We're going to go ahead and put costs together for a new tank so that we have that. And then once we get the tank out of service, it's inspected, we can determine what it's going to cost to rehabilitate that. And then we can meet again and provide our recommendations and determine cost-wise what's the best option to proceed.
Do you have a ballpark figure on what option 1 would be and what option 2 will be?
Right now, it looks like to rehab it, if we were to spray that Zypex on the whole inside, it looks like you could get all that done for the lining about $250,000, and then they've also got to build that wall for the roof to rest on, and that's about $200,000. So you're looking at roughly $450,000. But that's if we have to line the whole tank. Maybe there's spots that are bad, and maybe there's not. We don't really know the condition. So until we get this drained and inspected, we really can't give you a good recommendation.
And you said it was built in 1898, I think?
Yeah.
So probably things have modernized a little bit since then.
Yeah.
And I guess when we pull this offline, when we do the 2 things you said we had to do, the high-low.
Yeah.
Will that affect any of the customers, or is the water tank going to be sufficient to keep all of our customers up?
The elevated tank will be sufficient to keep up. Yeah. Your wells will probably run a little bit longer when we have it out of surface. But right now, what's your usage, Eric? 500,000 to 600,000?
Yeah, 500,000 to 600,000.
And that elevated tank's 500. So it'll store almost a day's usage. So if we run the wells a little bit more, we can easily keep up.
Okay.
Is this like a quick, once you take it offline and we decide what to do, is it gonna be offline for like a really long time?
No, our intent is to get in there and inspect it and put it back in service and then
Whatever we go with.
and then figure out how we're going to fix it
Okay.
or replace it. So
Okay.
our plan is to have it out of service for a couple weeks at the most.
Yeah, because by the time, then you got to order everything if we decide to go with new and all this
Yeah,
other stuff.
we're not going to leave it out of service while we're going to rehab it. We'll put it back in service, develop a plan where, because there's going to need to be some financial analysis through this too. We'll need to get Baker Tilly involved to figure out,
Yeah.
Is a
Absolutely.
new 500,000 gallon tank like we're talking about to replace this one, kind of like in kind, is that cheaper than another elevated tank?
yes. Yeah. Plus the way your system's set up.
Well, you still have to have pressure reducing valves
Yeah.
to drop the pressure for that low zone, but I was just trying to think,
Yeah, they're about half as much as an elevated.
an in-ground tank's half as much. Wow.
It surprises me, really.
Yeah, me too.
That doesn't mess with the hill, right? The sledding hill. The sledding hill for all the children. We already don't have,
Hey, you
we
gotta
already
keep the
don't have a
sledding.
pool. Don't take the sledding hill.
There's a sledding hill by the pool,
That's true. That's true.
the old pool.
We'll revisit that when the
Yeah.
time. Anyway, no action on this yet, just making you aware.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank
keep
you.
monitoring it. I would say probably sometime in late October, early November, we'll have some information on this,
Okay.
what to do next.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, department heads. Mr. Swank.
I don't have anything.
Okay, Chief Miller.
We took our new ordinances and our new ordinance program through full term, if you want to call it, through the court system. The judge issued orders for removal of equipment. We've towed multiple cars off properties, about 14 in one day. American Auto will be coordinating together, worked out a deal with the Beatles to haul scrap metal into their location, as well as we're getting ready to set up trash cans to come in so we can start removing property from people's residences that they didn't want to get rid of. So we'll be coordinating that over the next 2 weeks to get those 9 properties cleaned up. Our final car came in and it's being currently built, so. Okay.
Was there any areas when, I'm sure you had to go to court and stuff over some of this maybe? Was there anything in ordinances that maybe minor changes would make things easier, or did it flow real smooth?
It went very smooth, very smooth. I think coordination with our attorney and our judge kind of streamlined that process. They made it very easy for us to enact those ordinances, serve them with the proper paperwork, get a court date set, and move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a lot of work.
Chief Little.
A few things. I don't know if you guys seen the email from the state, but the state has approved the territory. So now their legal team is just doing all their legal that they do. So it's good news. So we're at the point where we'll need to start developing the board. The board is from one person from each township and one representing the city council. So we'll need to start looking at who you guys want on that.
Would that be something to be decided this year or next year?
It's got to be decided before January 1.
Okay.
Because that's when the territory takes place. The board for the territory is in charge of budgeting, approving the budget, spending, everything. So once it's all done, the city no longer has anything to do with the budget of the territory. They're just the hub of the money that's coming in. So it's got to be in place before January 1. The other thing is, Okra has approved the income survey. Chrissy sent out an email a couple, maybe a week or so ago. I haven't heard anything else, so we'll see what we want to do with that. Then the other thing is the second round of the training centers, the people that are getting them has been announced. I guess there's going to be like 3 or 4 rounds of when they're going to do it. So we're just waiting here, out here. So
are we still in the running?
as far as I know, yeah. So I haven't heard anything saying we're not. So
Great.
so we'll still have to decide where we want it.
Yeah.
If we have a place, if not, then we're going to have to pass.
So a couple questions. One hinges on the other hinges on one other. Generator, still want to keep it on the radar, which we're waiting on the additions that we talked about for the fire station.
Yeah, so wait on the grant to come through, see if we get approved that. Then we need to come up with a financial plan with the territory, with Baker Tilly on the station, if that's still a go or no go. As far as the goes, I'm not 100% sure on that, so.
So we don't have any idea of the size requirements, 'cause I know we've been talking about the generator for a while and everything else in the fire station with
Yeah,
fire territory and all that. So I know there's lots of moving pieces where it's hard to decide.
Yeah, I think the last time we talked as a group, we were just waiting on to see what size we needed. And then make
So I
a
think
decision from there.
Takes us like 6 months to get it, so it'd be nice to have it at some point here
That takes a while.
before we actually need it again. Hopefully not, but. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on unfinished business, we have the ordinance amending the city's Attica zone map.
You skipped me.
Oh, Joanne, I did it again. I'm sorry.
Every time.
I looked,
Every time.
I'm gonna put you at the top of the list, so that way I don't miss.
I handed out the current year's financials. I also handed out the advertised budget that was uploaded to Gateway by September 1st, which will allow us to have the public hearing today for the budget. You will not vote on the budget until the October meeting, but also in your packets, I included the breakdown of all the departments and all the category expenses, so you could see what made up the advertised amounts. So that's all I have.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, next we have an ordinance amending the city of Attica zone map. And I believe, Judd, can you kind of explain what this is?
Sure. This is, we annexed in the western half of a parcel that was owned by Harrison Steel Castings along the south side of the city on 41, next to Odell's. And this is that property that was annexed in that was zoned agricultural. And because they're going to develop it with single family housing, it needs to be switched over to R1 residential so it's zoned correctly for what they intend to do with it. And so this does that. It goes in front of the Plan Commission who had a hearing on it. And the neighbors were all notified of that, and we advertise it in the paper like we always do. And several residents or neighbors came to that meeting and spoke. And I think from what I recall of that hearing, the most concern was from Odell's that there would be some entrance worked out that didn't interfere with their operation at all. And that was their big concern, it seemed like.
Or how close they would be to the property line.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Rob Harrison was there and addressed some of that at the meeting. So anyway, they gave a favorable recommendation to you to rezone this property. And if there was anything else from that, I think it wasn't that worthy of a meeting. So this is the next step. With that favorable recommendation, you can ignore it and not change the property. You can accept the recommendation and rezone the property. You can send it back to the Plan Commission for further study. Those are really the options.
Do we have a motion to accept?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the rezoning to R1 as recommended.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed.
And so after you sign that, I'll record it and Joanne will get the file. And
That goes to Larry, I think.
we'll get a copy of the recorded ordinance, and that's one that's good too. When it's recorded, you're good to go.
We can still make it. Thank you.
No.
They're all messed up.
I know, it's the exact same thing.
Here's on the next page.
Just putting in the vote. Ready to vote.
Oh, sorry. The insurance got divided up.
So we are not discussing that salary. ordinance.
Not tonight.
Okay,
We
that's
will
fine.
in October.
That's fine.
Okay. Next is we'll suspend the meeting and we'll have a public hearing on the budget. And this is open to the public if anybody has any comments or concerns. Does anybody have any comments? Then this meeting is closed. We resume our regular meeting. Okay, the only other thing I had was Mr. Voorhees had spoke to someone and he's left me a voicemail. I have not spoke to him yet, but there's property on Monroe Street. It's 2 lots, Scott.
Yes, it's 206 and 208 Monroe.
Which on our long-term master plan, we have a plan for a canal park down there. These properties would butt right against it, and we have to decide if we want anything to be built on those or if it's something the city would want to pursue to purchase.
It's 208, 210, I apologize.
Okay, 208 and 210.
Those are 15,000. Is the price?
The price, they were getting ready to close and they had a couple ladies from Illinois that were going to potentially buy it and they were gonna put a single, mobile home or something, which is not allowed. And Eric was involved and the deal was cut. At that point, they pulled out and somehow in communication with others, it was brought up that we had a canal project, which officially we don't have a canal project. And he was trying to allude that that potential canal project, we had nothing in writing, stopped his sale. So I talked to him and made it very clear that's not the case.
Right, it was just on our master plan, but we're not close to that.
There's lots of things on our master plan.
Right.
But it's literally 2 long properties there that are right part of where we're gonna do all of our, park, dog parks, all this other stuff like that. And if we ever did bring in that canal project,
We need that property.
we need that property. It's 15,000.
I think it would really behoove the city if we purchased that
I
property.
absolutely do, because if they end up putting something on there, we decide to do something, then we get into eminent domain, some other stuff like that, the price is gonna be astronomical because they know we need it then.
Right.
And it's right there close to everything, that we're looking to do and develop down there. So
Yes.
I wanted to get it on the radar.
I think they're 15,000 each, right?
No, it's 15,000 for both, is what
Okay,
he told
good,
me.
good.
And I thought
2 for
that was probably
Yeah.
a pretty fair price. There may be some negotiation. He asked me to call him back if it's something we want to entertain. We can get in touch with his realtor. I didn't know process. I just wanted to
Sure.
bring it up because I'm glad the sale didn't go through.
Right.
And, I didn't know that it was up for sale.
Right. But I really feel that we need to get this property.
That'll
part
allow
of the
for a lot of
puzzle.
additional
Yes.
upgrades
Yes.
for all of our plans down there with
Yes.
everything.
So do we have a motion to move forward?
I'll make a motion to move forward to purchase 208 and 210 Monroe,
West Monroe Street.
West Monroe Street to help with our canal project.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I guess we'll have to get in touch with Baker Tilly, find out, it's 15,000, I don't know, but
Is there anything we can sell? I know we've asked about this before. No, I'm serious.
We
We have
gotta-
a lot of properties that are sitting vacant, that are just sitting. And they're not doing anything.
right.
We talked about it a couple months ago. We gotta advertise all of this and put them up for bids and, auction or whatever.
Surplus
Declare
property.
surplus.
Because I get phone calls from people that say this property's behind me and the city owns it. Can I buy it? And you can't just let them buy it. You gotta.
Here's the other thing I'm not
Yeah,
willing to
good.
do, like somebody else tried to do. I'm not gonna sell, I personally am not gonna sell a piece of property for $3,000 because that's insane. Nobody gets it
Unless
for
it's
that much.
beneficial to us for longevity, gathering taxes.
That's okay, I would agree with that. If there's
Because it'll pay
something,
for itself over time, but I guess,
not to just build something that they wanted, just to put a house on.
no,
I wasn't okay with
I
that.
agree with you. On these properties, do you want me?
I got a question. On that, don't you think there should be some stipulations? That if somebody were to buy it, you gotta build in this period of time? Or
Yes.
if it's in the business district, you have to put your business in there and build a structure in this amount of time? Because, somebody might just buy it to have an empty lot beside their house. Is that really doing us any favors? Does that help my town?
I think we had done that on another one
We
that
did.
somebody was looking at. We had said, no, we are not that type of home. We're not allowing, it was, I forget.
We did that for the North Prairie project we were about to sell, where we very specific, we specifies exactly what type of structure, what we're looking for within a certain time period and all this other stuff, so.
For the fire
way-
department.
It holds it
Maybe
to,
maybe you guys can come up with something kind of uniform for if we do sell a lot, this is the information, this is what our
That's not a
expectations
bad
are.
idea.
Something of that nature.
That's a good idea, Andy.
Who's the owner on that property?
Zach Pitts.
do you want his number, Judd, or do I need to get, I had told him I
We're
would
good.
follow up with him tonight or tomorrow or
Is
something.
it P-I-T-T-S or P-U-E-T-Z?
P-I-T-T-S, Zachary.
Gotcha.
The property name is Zach Pitts, and I didn't get the name of his realtor or anything like that.
We're good.
I think it makes a difference too, if it's adjoining your property and you're wanting to buy it, that's one thing, but if you're buying it as a standalone property, people need to understand that you can't put a storage shed or something on it.
Well, that's it.
Use
And-
Well, we have an ordinance
And, you
against
know,
that.
We do,
Yes,
but they
right.
need to understand that up front.
Right,
That
right.
Well,
you can't use this for storage or something
Right.
like that.
Well, we kind of got in that with the zoning in Fountain County. It was kind of, it's kind of a free-for-all, quite honest. Fountain County has the loosest zoning laws, in the state. And I said, if you guys don't kind of be consistent with how you do things, when you go fight that battle, you don't have a leg to stand on, because there's no precedence. And so I think it's important, like you say, Larry, that you kind of have it spelled out, this is what you can do with this, and kind of really spell it out so that people don't take advantage of the situation, or you get something you don't really want there. And that can happen very easily.
Okay, we got 10 minutes till the ceremony.
I guess just question, are you gonna contact Mr. Pitts, or what's the process to move that along, Judd?
We're going to,
Could you give us his realtor's information?
Yes,
or
I
we
got
should
it.
She's
not?
got it
text
right
it to
here,
you.
she actually just pulled it up.
That'd be fantastic. We'll need a purchase agreement at the very least, and a deed and a sales disclosure form.
I think maybe for a quick deal, I think maybe there's a little bit that we can save.
There it is.
Oh, did you get it? Because I just sent it to the wrong Ingrid, so that's great.
You sent it to Bridget.
Yeah.
I guess we need to make sure there's no taxes due on it or
Right.
anything like that, right? No liens.
No environmental, anything like that.
and so the taxes are a year behind
That's your
already.
number, I just texted you.
So we would probably, out of that $15,000, want to hold back whatever's going to be due next year, so it nets out to $15,000.
Yes.
Did you just get a text message
Right
from me?
now,
Oh, no.
But I know Sylvia, so I can reach out to her. It's on my realtor app.
right now, all taxes are 100% caught up.
But they're a year in arrears.
Right, they're a year in arrears.
So if we bought it at the end of September, for instance, that's 9/12 of the way through. So whatever the taxes were, if say it was $500, we would want to say that $375 is being withheld from your 15 grand to cover the cost of those taxes.
Got it. And I think it was
We'll
from
get-
his
we'll go back to
aging
that.
parents or something, it was $400 a year, $384 a year, I think is what it was.
Okay.
For each
We'll
one.
square it away.
Did
That's
you use
what.
your dad?
Thank you.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, are we ready?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Hey, is it 0383?
Nope, that's the office.
Yeah.
You text that.
0445.